Zoya stood at the entrance of the grand ballroom, her heart thudding in her chest so loudly it almost drowned out the distant chatter of guests. The wedding coordinator had insisted on classical music, but somehow, the melody felt too quiet in the vast expanse of the hall. Rows of seats were filled with people who barely looked up from their phones. A few uncles whispered among themselves, while bored cousins took selfies against the extravagant floral backdrop. She tried to calm her nerves, adjusting her delicate lace veil. Every bride imagines her wedding day as a shimmering beacon of love and celebration. Yet, in that moment, Zoya felt as though she were intruding on a business conference rather than walking toward her future husband. The hush in the room was more deafening than any applause could ever be. Ayaan, her groom, stood at the far end of the aisle. Tall, with sharp features, he wore a tailored black tuxedo. His eyes, however, were glued to the screen of his latest smartphone. Every so often, he would glance up, offer a polite, mechanical smile, then look right back down at his device. He didn't acknowledge Zoya's trembling approach, nor did he betray any particular emotion that might resemble excitement. Zoya's mother, discreetly wiping tears, murmured under her breath, "Smile, Beta. At least pretend to be happy." She nudged Zoya forward, gently. Zoya mustered the best smile she could. A soft wave of heartbreak swelled within her. This was her wedding day, yet not a single pair of hands was clapping, not a single face looked thrilled. When she finally reached Ayaan, he glanced at her with all the warmth of a polite stranger. His phone buzzed, and he nearly lifted it to check his notifications, before remembering where he was. The officiant cleared his throat, trying to command the room's attention. Ayaan's father, seated in the front row, frowned at the social media influencer who was filming everything live, while Zoya's father stared at the floor, wishing the ceremony would finish quickly. A bead of sweat trickled down Zoya's temple. She clenched her bouquet, searching for some semblance of comfort in the fresh scent of roses. It felt like she was the only person in the hall who truly grasped the gravity of the moment. With a shaky breath, she turned to face Ayaan and whispered, "I do." Only a few uninterested guests clapped out of obligation, and even that applause fizzled after a moment. Ayaan replied in a flat tone, "I do," but it felt more like a question than a vow. Papers were signed quickly. The officiant offered a forced grin and said, "Congratulations." But there was no confetti, no tears of joy, no laughter reverberating off the ornate walls. Zoya looked around, swallowed her hurt, and told herself this was just the beginning. She only hoped it wouldn't always feel like an ending. Later that evening, Zoya scrolled through her phone in the bridal suite, still in her gown. Photographs of the wedding were already hitting social media. Ayaan's PR team had posted cinematic shots, a smiling bride, a dashing groom, captioned with phrases like "True love wins." The carefully edited images made everything seem like a fairy tale dream. When Ayaan walked in, he didn't even glance at her dress. He placed his phone on the nearest table and sighed. "The pictures are doing well on Instagram. Lots of engagement," he said, sounding more like he was discussing quarterly earnings than a momentous personal event. Zoya fiddled with the lace on her sleeve, biting her lip. "Were you happy with how things turned out?" He shrugged. "It's fine. Good for our family's arrangement. Everyone's praising the decor. You looked good in the photos." There it was, that hollow validation. Zoya nodded. "We didn't really get a chance to talk at the reception. Everything felt rushed." Ayaan half smiled, eyes flicking back to his phone. "We have time to talk later. Right now, the PR team wants a short, cheerful video statement from us, just a quick clip saying how overjoyed we are." Zoya's heart sank. He wanted to record a video, to stage happiness for the world. But maybe that's what married life with Ayaan would be like, a series of curated performances. She forced a smile, allowing him to position the phone to capture her face at the perfect angle. "Hey everyone," he began, adopting a warm tone. "Ayaan here with my beautiful bride, Zoya. We're absolutely thrilled to finally tie the knot." Zoya nodded, murmuring, "Thank you for all your blessings," as she tried not to stare at her reflection in the phone screen. She looked radiant, yet she felt empty. The moment the camera stopped, Ayaan's expression reverted to mild disinterest. He mumbled something about replying to emails and headed to the adjoining suite. Alone in the room, Zoya scrolled through the Instagram posts. People gushed in the comments, "So cute. You two look perfect together. Couple goals." If only they knew the quiet despair she'd felt all day. If only they knew this was the perfect Instagram lie. A month later, Zoya found herself accompanying Ayaan to a high-profile tech press dinner. The restaurant hummed with the energy of up-and-coming CEOs, influential bloggers, and established venture capitalists. Dressed in an elegant black dress, Zoya tried to blend in and not feel too out of place. She was excited, perhaps this was a chance to stand beside Ayaan in a supportive way, to feel like a team. "Just remember," Ayaan said as they entered the venue, "it's important you look the part. These people all talk." Zoya pressed her lips together, determined to give a good impression. She carefully chose her words when introduced to some of Ayaan's associates. Yet, halfway through the dinner, an inquisitive journalist turned to Ayaan and asked, "So, tell us about your wife. What's she all about?" Ayaan laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound that echoed in the hush around them. "Zoya? She's just someone I met abroad," he said, waving a hand as though the details were inconsequential. She's not really into the whole business scene." The journalist glanced at Zoya with faint curiosity. "Where did you meet?" Zoya's cheeks flamed. That question wasn't even accurate. They hadn't met abroad, it had all been arranged by their families. Yet she stayed silent, unsure whether to correct him or let it go. Before she could formulate an answer, Ayaan offered a dismissive shrug. "Probably in Europe somewhere. Hard to remember. We were introduced at one of those fancy gatherings, right, honey?" The table erupted with laughter, though some people looked politely confused. Zoya forced a small smile, feeling the heat of 100 eyes on her. It was as if she were an accessory at best, a nuisance at worst. She tried to recover. Actually, it was at a charity gala in London. She gave a quick, polite laugh. "We spoke about music and technology. But the damage was done." The press dinner continued, full of business banter and future projects. Zoya shrank into herself, painfully aware she had no real role here. Ayaan never asked her opinion, never once tried to involve her in the conversation. By the end of the night, she wished she could vanish. In the car ride home, she stared out the window, tears threatening to spill. Ayaan typed furiously on his phone, scheduling a breakfast meeting. Not once did he ask how she felt about the public humiliation he had casually inflicted. 2 weeks later, Zoya's birthday dawned with the promise of something special. She woke up early, heart fluttering with anticipation. Even a small acknowledgement, a bouquet, a simple card, would warm her heart. However, Ayaan had already left for work. No note, no text, nothing. Refusing to let disappointment consume her, Zoya spent the morning baking a vanilla cake in the massive, underused kitchen. The sweet smell of butter and sugar brought back memories of her childhood, memories of her mother clapping excitedly whenever Zoya presented a cake. She carefully iced it, forming delicate swirls, and set it on the dining room table. That evening, she heard the click of the front door. She rushed to greet Ayaan, heart pounding in excitement. He entered, carrying a large bouquet of red roses. Relief flooded her momentarily, he hadn't forgotten. But then he said, "Lena forgot her flowers at the office, so I promised I'd bring these to her on the way. Where's my laptop charger?" Zoya's heart sank as he walked right past her, as though she were a ghost. She closed her eyes, trying to ward off tears. "Ayaan," she whispered softly. "It's my birthday today." He paused for a second, hand on the stair rail, and frowned. "Oh. Right. Sorry, I've been busy. Happy birthday. His tone was utterly devoid of warmth. She stood in silence as he disappeared into his study. The bouquet, intended for another woman's forgetfulness, seemed to mock her. She moved slowly back to the dining table and gently slid the cake into the fridge, her appetite vanishing. She wouldn't let him see the cake now, it felt like a secret burden of her unacknowledged hopes. Late that night, she sliced a small piece for herself, tasting the sweetness through tears. She scribbled in her journal, "I'm living in a house that never truly feels like home." Feeling suffocated, Zoya wandered the spacious house the next afternoon. She opened doors that led to rarely used guest rooms and curated living spaces that still smelled of fresh paint. Eventually, she came across a narrow staircase leading up to a dusty attic. Cobwebs clung to the corners, and cardboard boxes were stacked haphazardly. A single overhead bulb flickered, casting an eerie glow. Zoya surveyed the clutter and spotted a familiar shape, her old keyboard case. Her heart skipped a beat. She had brought it here after the wedding, but it had been forgotten, just like her birthday, just like her dreams. Brushing off the dust, she carefully plugged it into an ancient extension cord. The keys lit up, and an unexpected wave of nostalgia rushed over her. When was the last time she had played or sung? She remembered the small recitals she'd given at her community center, her mother's proud face in the front row, tears shining. Zoya pressed a tentative chord. The sound reverberated through the attic, and something in her chest cracked open. She began to hum quietly, her voice growing stronger with each note. Before she realized it, she was singing a haunting melody that she had composed years ago, long before meeting Ayaan, long before her life had become a string of lonely nights. Her voice, raw with emotion, wrapped itself around the stale air, giving the attic an unexpected vitality. It was as though she were reclaiming a piece of herself, a piece that had been locked away since her wedding. For a brief moment, she forgot the humiliation, the loneliness, the heartbreak. All that mattered was the music. Exhaling a shaky breath, she thought, music is the only place I feel seen. A few days later, Zoya was absent-mindedly checking her social media messages when a name lit up the screen, Mrs. Hamid. Her former music mentor had sent a friendly note, "Heard you got married, dear. How are you? I'd love to catch up." Zoya's heart fluttered. She recalled the woman's encouraging smile, her endless patience, and that unwavering faith in Zoya's talent. They had lost touch after Zoya got busy with the wedding. Maybe it was time to reconnect with someone who actually cared. Over tea at a cozy cafe, Mrs. Hamid surveyed Zoya's face with kind, worried eyes. "You're thinner. Are you getting enough sleep, child?" Zoya forced a laugh. "I'm fine, just adjusting." "You used to glow, Zoya," the older woman insisted, placing a comforting hand on hers. "Back when you sang every day, back when your world was music." Zoya felt tears prickle. She didn't dare open up entirely, but she couldn't hold everything back either. "It's been hard," she admitted. "I feel like I'm living in someone else's world. I'm invisible." Mrs. Hamid frowned. "In the time I've known you, you've never been invisible. Your voice, your creativity, it's powerful. Don't let it go." Zoya sipped her tea, letting the warmth steady her shaking hands. She wanted to shout, but I already did let it go. Instead, she whispered, "Thank you for still believing in me." As they parted ways, Mrs. Hamid pressed a small notebook into Zoya's hand. "Jot down any melodies that come to you, or any words you feel in your heart. Then, we'll see what we can do." Zoya nodded, tears threatening to spill. She felt a faint flicker of hope, someone saw her, someone wanted her to remember who she used to be. A couple of weeks passed, and Mrs. Hamid returned with her nephew, Rayhan. "He's a content creator," she explained as they stood in Zoya's living room. "He has a knack for spotting talent." Rayhan was in his mid-20s, wearing stylish glasses and carrying camera equipment. He greeted Zoya with an affable smile. "I've heard so much about your voice. I'm intrigued." Zoya was suddenly self-conscious, glancing around the immaculate living room with its pristine white couches. "I haven't performed in a long time," she said softly. "Just sing something," encouraged Mrs. Hamid. "Anything from your heart." With a small nod, Zoya walked them up to the attic. Rayhan surveyed the dusty boxes, the keyboard, and the old microphone. "This place has atmosphere," he said. "Let's record here." Zoya's fingers trembled on the keyboard. Rayhan busied himself adjusting the microphone and checking his recording levels. Under the warm glow of the single bulb, she began to sing a melody she had composed in her journal, something raw, emotional, and deeply personal. Unbeknownst to her, Rayhan was secretly live-streaming it to his small follower base. He wanted them to hear this pure, unfiltered voice. After she finished, Zoya exhaled, cheeks burning. "I'm rusty," she apologized, her voice quivering. "That was hauntingly beautiful," Rayhan murmured, setting the camera aside. Mrs. Hamid nodded enthusiastically, tears pooling in her eyes. What Zoya didn't know was that Rayhan's livestream had already drawn in a curious crowd online, who were typing fervent comments. "Who is she? That voice is insane. We need more." Later that night, Rayhan uploaded a cleaned-up version of the recording to his channel. It gathered 800,000 views in less than 24 hours. The next morning, Zoya woke to a barrage of notifications on her phone. Old acquaintances, distant cousins, even random strangers were messaging her. "Is that you singing? You're trending. Such a lovely voice." Alarmed, she checked the link Rayhan had sent. Sure enough, there she was in the attic, singing her heart out. The view count kept climbing, as did the comments. She hardly knew how to react, a swirl of excitement and fear coursed through her veins. She marched downstairs to find Ayaan pacing in the living room, phone pressed to his ear. Yes, I'm aware," he was saying tersely. "Take it down if it's detrimental, hold on." He hung up abruptly and turned to Zoya, his eyes narrowing. "Did you upload some video of you singing?" Zoya blinked. "Rayhan posted it." "I didn't think. People are calling me about it," Ayaan snapped. "They want to know if you're forging some new music career. Reporters are curious." Zoya's heart sank. "I'm sorry, I had no idea it would go viral." Ayaan exhaled, pinching the bridge of his nose. "You should have told me. This kind of publicity isn't what I signed up for. My brand can't just switch narratives overnight." Confusion clouded Zoya's mind. "It's just a song," she said quietly. "I didn't do it for your brand or any brand. It just happened." Ayaan eyed her with frustration. "Listen, a lot of people are interested in you now. But we need to be careful with how we handle this. Maybe we can spin it in our favor, or maybe we shut it down. I'll let my PR team decide." She felt a pang of hurt. Her singing wasn't a commodity to be shut down or used. This was her heart on display. "So you only care about how it affects your image?" she asked, voice trembling. He shrugged. "That's how this world works, Zoya." In the span of a heartbeat, the excitement she'd felt that morning dissipated, replaced by a sting of disappointment. Even success, it seemed, was an inconvenience to Ayaan's carefully curated life. That evening, the tension was thick enough to slice with a knife. Ayaan's father called, sternly advising him to keep the matter under control, while Zoya received calls from family members congratulating her on the viral success. She sat at the edge of the bed, phone in hand, staring at the new wave of messages pouring in. Ayaan walked in, pulling at his tie irritably. "The entire day has been chaos," he muttered. "Journalists keep asking about you. Do you realize how distracting this is for my business deals?" Zoya looked up. "I didn't choose for it to go viral. People connected with the music. Isn't that a good thing?" "Not when it overshadows what I'm trying to do," he snapped. I need you to stop this singing nonsense. Zoya felt anger bubbling in her chest. You want me to just throw away my passion because it's inconvenient for your board meetings? Ayaan's jaw tightened. Yes, if you want this marriage to last. Stay quiet, or it ends. Her heart thundered. She stood up, fists clenched. You think threatening divorce will silence me? He scoffed. Look at what we have: business partnerships, social standing. Do you really want to risk that for a hobby? Zoya's eyes flashed with unshed tears. She recalled every moment she had felt invisible or humiliated. Now he was tossing the word divorce at her like a weapon. She inhaled, voice shaking. This marriage already ended the day I became invisible. Before Ayaan could retort, she fled the room, tears finally spilling. Perhaps for the first time since their wedding, she felt a surge of defiance. She refused to be muted any longer. Seated on the carpet in the attic, Zoya powered up her phone and opened a live streaming app. She had never gone live before, but something inside her urged her forward. Her heart pounded with each breath. She placed the phone at a slight distance, so the dusty boxes and old keyboard formed a backdrop. Taking a deep breath, she addressed her viewers. I've been told to stay quiet, she began, voice trembling, to not sing because it's inconvenient for someone else's plan. But I was never nobody. I was just unheard. Her words spilled out in a rush of pent-up emotion, the humiliations, the disregard for her talent, the nights spent feeling alone in a marriage that gave her no sense of belonging. She spoke about her love for music, her dreams buried under obligations. Then, throat thick with tears, she moved to the keyboard and began to sing. The live audience count skyrocketed. Friends tagged friends. Strangers typed fervent comments, "This is so raw. Her voice speaks to my soul." Finally, someone who's real. By the time she finished, she was exhausted but exhilarated. Her phone buzzed non-stop with notifications. Within 24 hours, the clip of her emotional confession and impassioned song hit 10 million views across various platforms. She'd officially broken the internet on her own terms. The next morning, Zoya awoke to a barrage of missed calls from Ayaan's PR team. She ignored them, focusing instead on supportive messages from strangers around the world. People were sharing how her story resonated with their own struggles. The doorbell rang repeatedly. When she opened it, a harried woman with a clipboard barged in, followed by two nervous-looking assistants. Zoya, hello. I'm Mira, from Ayaan's PR agency. We're here to discuss how to, manage the new wave of interest in you. Zoya stared at them blankly. Manage? I'm not a brand. I'm a person. Mira offered a pinched smile. Of course, yes. But the public sees you as an extension of Ayaan's brand. They love this storyline, the shy wife, the hidden talent, the dramatic reveal. It's brilliant PR if we pivot correctly. We're thinking a joint interview, some couple photos, maybe a duet or two, really lean into the idea that you're happily married and... Zoya raised a hand, stopping her. I'm sorry, but I'm not interested in faking happiness for a camera. Mira exchanged looks with her assistants. But the synergy, the sponsor deals, there's a lot of money on the table. Please consider it. Shaking her head, Zoya firmly replied, Tell Ayaan that I'm done being just a prop. If he wants a rebrand, he can do it without me. She escorted them out, ignoring their frantic pleas. Once the door clicked shut, she felt a surge of liberation, tempered with the reality of what this meant for her and Ayaan. Within days, the cracks in their marriage became a media-feeding frenzy. Paparazzi snapped pictures of Zoya leaving the house alone. Speculative articles popped up, with headlines questioning whether the viral singing sensation was divorcing the tech mogul. Zoya decided to end the charade on her own terms. She filed for divorce quietly, yet the news exploded online. The day she walked into the courthouse, wearing a striking red sari, cameras flashed wildly. She held her head high, ignoring the shouting journalists. A reporter pushed a microphone toward her, asking, "Is this revenge for how Ayaan treated you?" Zoya paused before responding, her voice steady. "This isn't revenge," she said. "It's clarity. We both deserve to live authentically, and in this marriage, I was never allowed to be myself." Inside, she signed the papers. Ayaan arrived late, looking haggard. They exchanged no words, just distant glances. He hesitated as if wanting to speak, but she simply turned away. When she exited the building, the paparazzi bombarded her with questions. She lifted her chin, repeating, "No more questions. This is my personal life." Trending #sword, #Zoya unplugged, #from wife to icon, #divorce for dignity. She read them with mixed feelings. Relief warred with sadness. She had lost a marriage, but in doing so, she'd reclaimed her voice. Rayhan reached out to Zoya soon after the divorce news broke. "I've got a slot at a national music festival," he said, voice crackling with excitement over the phone. "One of the main performers dropped out, and they need a fresh face to draw crowds. I showed them your videos, and they're interested." Her heart slammed against her ribcage. A national music festival? She had never performed in front of such a massive audience. Fear and exhilaration tangled in her mind. "Are you sure I'm ready?" she whispered. "I believe in you," Rayhan said confidently. "And trust me, the internet is buzzing about your next move. This is it." The day of the festival, Zoya stood backstage, nerves dancing in her stomach. The crowd's roar bled through the concrete walls, an intimidating reminder of just how big this moment was. She clutched her microphone, remembering Mrs. Hamid's words, "You were born for the stage." Taking a deep breath, she stepped onto the platform. To her shock, the audience erupted in cheers. Some held signs with her name, others waved phone flashlights in the air. She almost forgot to breathe. She started slow, a poignant a cappella note that turned the bustling crowd into a hushed sea. Then the music picked up, and she poured her soul into every lyric. The sound of thousands of voices cheering, chanting her name, "Zoya! Zoya! Zoya!" felt like a rush of pure electric hope. When she finished, the applause was deafening. She bowed, tears glistening in her eyes. This was the culmination of every lonely night, every suppressed dream. She was not invisible anymore. Her set was a triumph. She exited the stage to thunderous cheers, only for Rayhan to catch her wrist. "You might want to know, Ayaan is here." Zoya froze. "What do you mean he's here?" Rayhan shrugged. "Someone spotted him in the front row with that new fiancée, Lena. They're probably making a PR appearance or scoping you out. Are you okay?" Her mind whirled. Why would Ayaan show up now? Did he want to gloat? She felt a jolt of panic, then steadied herself. She was done letting him dictate her emotions. Stepping back onto the stage for an encore, she spotted him indeed. Ayaan was near the barricades, expression unreadable, standing next to a glamorous Lena who looked mildly confused. Cameras flashed around them. Zoya inhaled slowly, gripping the microphone. "This next song is called Not Yours to Break. I wrote it about finding the courage to leave a place where you were never truly seen." A hush fell over the crowd. She delivered the opening lines with raw vulnerability, voice trembling initially but growing stronger with each note. She locked eyes with Ayaan for a fleeting second. He seemed to shift uncomfortably. Lena's face turned stony. By the final chorus, Zoya closed her eyes, belting out the anthem with conviction. When she finished, the crowd roared. She glanced back at the spot where Ayaan stood. He was gone, leaving only an empty space in the front row. For a moment, she felt a twinge of sadness, but mostly she felt liberated. After the show, Zoya was backstage, still riding the high of the performance. Fans who had managed to sneak past security were clamoring for photos, and Rayhan tried his best to keep order. Amid the chaos, he suddenly dropped to one knee, phone in one hand, ring box in the other. The crowd gasped. Zoya's eyes widened in shock. "Rayhan, what are you doing?" she asked breathlessly. He looked up at her, sincerity etched across his face. "Zoya, I know this is crazy. We haven't known each other that long, and everything's been a whirlwind. But I've never felt so certain about anyone in my life. I don't care if people think this is for clout or views. I just want you to know I'm here, truly here, and I believe in you more than anyone else I've ever met." A hush fell over the gathering onlookers. Phones were raised, live streaming the moment. Zoya felt her heart race. She stared at Rayhan, at the small ring catching the stage lights, at the wide-eyed fans whispering, "Say yes." She took a shaky breath. "Rayhan, you're a wonderful friend, an incredible support. But this is happening so fast." Her eyes darted to the throng of cameras. Rayhan nodded, not pushing. "I understand. Just know my feelings are genuine. And if you need more time, I'll wait. Even if you say no, I'll still be here for you as a friend." She looked around at the crowd. The cheers, the excitement, the online comments chanting for her to accept the proposal. She didn't want to rush into another relationship under the public's gaze. Yet a glimmer of warmth bloomed in her heart at his sincerity. Setting a hand on Rayhan's shoulder, she leaned in and murmured, "Let's talk when the cameras aren't rolling." The crowd roared in good-natured disappointment, but Rayhan simply smiled, slipping the ring back into his pocket. In that moment, she felt lighter. She wasn't alone anymore, and the prospect of real love, untainted by PR or social climbing, beckoned like a gentle sunrise after a long night. Offers poured in the next day. Major record labels, beauty brands, streaming services, everyone wanted a piece of Zoya's skyrocketing fame. She found herself sitting in an office with a row of slick executives, each presenting enticing contracts. She flipped through pages of brand endorsements that promised lucrative paychecks. They wanted her face on billboards, her voice in jingles, her image tied to glamorous products. For a moment, she felt overwhelmed by the possibilities. A voice in her head whispered, "Is this why you began singing? For money and fame?" She recalled the lonely nights in the attic, the raw pain that drove her to sing her truth. She thought of all the fans who connected with her story on a human level. A smaller, independent music label caught her eye, a charity-driven initiative that used a portion of sales to fund music education for underprivileged children. Their contract was far less lucrative, but it aligned with something she believed in, the transformative power of music. She slid the big brand contracts aside, ignoring the shocked faces of the executives. "I appreciate your time," she said politely, "but I already know which path feels right for me." Choosing the modest, heartfelt label sent ripples through the industry. Critics said she was throwing away her golden chance. But Zoya didn't care. She was staying true to the passion that had once saved her from invisibility. Shortly after news broke that Zoya had turned down the big labels, requests for interviews multiplied. Finally, she agreed to one nationally televised segment, a direct sit-down conversation where she could speak openly. Seated on a plush couch opposite a respected journalist, she took a calming breath as cameras rolled. The journalist offered a gentle smile. "Zoya, the world wants to know, how did you go from a quiet, seemingly unknown bride to this outspoken, viral music sensation?" She clasped her hands in her lap, recalling the neglected wedding, the suppressed anger, and the dusty attic. "I learned that being silent about your pain doesn't make it go away. It just buries you deeper. Music helped me dig myself out." The journalist leaned forward. "There are rumors you were emotionally neglected in your marriage. Do you feel comfortable sharing more about that?" Zoya exhaled, eyes flickering with emotion. "I don't want to villainize anyone. But yes, I felt invisible. Sometimes the greatest pain is the absence of care, of love. Emotional neglect can be more damaging than outright hostility because it makes you question your own worth. Her words resonated with viewers across the nation. People watching at home texted loved ones, posted supportive messages online, relating their own stories of mental health struggles and feeling unseen. In the end, Zoya concluded, rediscovering your worth isn't an act of revenge, it's an act of self-preservation. Music was my mirror. It reflected back to me what I was too afraid to acknowledge: I matter. We all do. The interview trended for days, sparking a conversation about mental health, emotional abuse, and the power of personal transformation. For Zoya, it was another step toward healing. One evening, not long after the interview, Ayaan sat at his expensive mahogany desk. The city lights glittered beyond the large windows, and a half-empty glass of whiskey rested near his elbow. In front of him was a blank sheet of paper. He began to write, the words flowing faster than he could keep up. Zoya. I know I hurt you. I know I made you feel invisible. The truth is, I was scared of losing control, scared of loving someone who could overshadow me. I wanted so badly to succeed that I forgot we were supposed to succeed together. I'm sorry. His pen hovered, and he swallowed hard, remembering the times he casually dismissed her, the countless moments he ignored her passion. The swirl of guilt in his chest was suffocating. I watched your interview. I saw how your eyes lit up when you spoke about music and how dead they looked when you were with me. I can't change what I did, but if I could do it again, I would support you instead of stifling you. You deserved more. He sighed heavily and folded the paper. He thought of mailing it, or perhaps sending an email. But fear and ego tangled within him. He wasn't ready to face her forgiveness or her rejection. Instead, he tucked the letter into a drawer. That same night, Zoya won her first music award for Best Viral Track. Ayaan watched the broadcast alone, glass of whiskey in hand. As she held the trophy, tears shining in her eyes, he felt the weight of regret crush him. But the letter remained unsent. Returning from the awards ceremony, Zoya felt a wave of nostalgia pull her toward her childhood neighborhood. It was a modest street, lined with small houses and bustling corner shops. The air smelled of fried snacks and fresh tea. Children played with makeshift cricket bats under the yellow glow of old street lights. She carried her trophy in a simple backpack, not wanting to draw attention. Strolling along the worn footpath, she saw a group of kids, maybe 8 or 9 years old, excitedly showing off a new ball. One of them recognized her from social media, pointing shyly. Aren't you that singer from the internet? Zoya smiled, kneeling to their height. Yes. You can call me Zoya. They giggled. One girl, her hair in 2 ponytails, whispered, Your voice is so pretty. My grandma watches you on YouTube. A warmth spread through Zoya. She noticed a battered harmonium lying on a chair nearby, perhaps the neighborhood caretaker's instrument. Do you all want to hear a song? She offered. The children cheered in delight, sitting cross-legged on the pavement. Zoya settled behind the harmonium, testing the keys. The humble instrument sputtered a little, but still held a soul-stirring tone. She began to sing a lullaby she'd learned from her own grandmother, her voice echoing in the quiet night. Passing neighbors paused, listening. A hush fell over the narrow street. In that moment, she felt more connected, more authentic, than she ever had in any grand concert hall. This was home, the community that nurtured her before she ever belonged to a gilded mansion or a viral sensation. When she finished, the children clapped excitedly, and the little girl hugged her. Zoya's eyes misted. This is where my real audience lives, she murmured. And she meant it, from the depths of her heart. Months passed, and Zoya poured her experiences into a new album, each track mirroring a chapter of her journey. The final piece wasn't a song but a spoken word composition. She stood in a small recording studio, headphones on, reading from her notes. Her voice echoed softly, "To everyone who has ever called a nobody, listen closely. We are the symphony now. We write our own scores, sing our own lyrics, and choose our own stages. Don't let anyone steal your melody." She paused, letting the emotion sink in. Rehan, now a close friend, maybe more, gave her an encouraging nod from behind the mixing console. Mrs. Hamid, present as always, beamed with pride, remembering the shy teenager who once trembled on a small stage. When the final track ended, a deep silence filled the studio. It wasn't the hollow silence of her wedding day, it was a silence brimming with purpose, with fulfillment. A hush that signified completion, growth, and a world of possibility ahead. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in oranges and pinks. Zoya stepped into the evening air, reflecting on how far she'd come. From overlooked bride to online sensation, from silent housewife to empowered artist. Her journey had been messy and painful, yet it had led her to this exact moment, where every note she sang felt like a triumph of spirit. Days later, that final spoken word piece went live under the hashtag from nobody to legend, sparking widespread conversation. Fan covers sprang up, tributes flowed in, and people found courage in her story to speak their own truths. Through heartbreak and healing, Zoya had learned the most valuable lesson: you can't stay invisible if you dare to shine your light. And that single, unwavering light, her voice, now resonated with millions. She'd become the nation's sweetheart, not because she was perfect, but because she was real. The end.